These are all the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in The Punisher: One Last Kill. Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Colton Ogburn, and we are going to break down this new Punisher special, explain where it fits in the Marvel timeline in relation to Daredevil Born Again Season 2, how it sets up Spider-Man Brand New Day, and a potential third season of The Punisher or a Punisher movie. So Frank Castle, the Punisher, he is a Marine turned vigilante following the murder of his family. Back before the events of Daredevil Season 2, the Netflix one, Frank Castle's family was murdered in a gang shooting. The shootout at a park was organized by two men that Castle worked under when serving as a Marine, where he and his team performed off-the-books missions. These two men that Frank once worked under believed that Frank was behind a leaked torture video, and so these two men, William Rollins and Colonel Ray Schoonover, orchestrated a gang war that Frank Castle was meant to be caught in the middle of and killed. However, Frank Castle survived, well, at least his body did, and on that day really, the persona of Frank Castle died and the Punisher was born. In this special, we even got flashes of the carousel at the park from the day his family was killed, and I'm actually pretty sure that these shots were pulled straight from the Punisher Season 1's footage. Now, Frank Castle has been on a decade-long mission to kill every gang involved in the killing of his family, and now come the end of Daredevil Born Again Season 2, there was apparently only one gang left, the Nuccis. Now, the Nuccis, they are actually from the comics. They first came into conflict with Frank Castle when he started killing the Nuccis to announce his return to the Punisher mantle. In the comics, Ma Nucci tries to ambush Frank in the Central Park Zoo, and he throws her into the polar bear enclosure, and she is ripped to shreds. Now, I personally was hoping that this special was going to fill the gap between Punisher Season 2 and Daredevil Born Again Season 1, which is like a 10-year gap, but it would appear that following the events of Season 2, where he once again re-embraced the moniker of the Punisher, Frank continued hunting down the various gangs and their families that were associated with the killing of his family. Now, in Born Again Season 1, we see Frank take a break from his mission at the request of Karen Page, who he no doubt still has feelings for, and he agrees to help Daredevil survive an attack by Kingpin's anti-vigilante task force, a task force that are proud fanboys of the Punisher.
Listen, Frank, everything that you do, you can do that with us.
You're a bunch of clowns, you know that?
So Punisher winds up in one of Mayor Fisk's cages, but he is able to break out. But instead of joining Daredevil's resistance and helping bring down the Kingpin, he instead returns to his mission to kill the Nuccis. So he moves from his apartment that we saw in Born Again, which we also see in Born Again Season 2 when Matt and Karen are using it. Frank moves to an apartment in the neighborhood that the crime family, the Nuccis, are in control of. He then begins plotting his revenge and eventually kills every single one of them, all except for Ma.
You forgot about me.
Now, this neighborhood was once peaceful, not because of vigilantes or even police, but because of the Nuccis, a crime family that ran this neighborhood like their own little kingdom and with a bit of an iron grip. But now, with the Nuccis and their army all dead, the neighborhood is in chaos, and that's where we pick up with One Last Kill. Frank is living in this empty apartment, disassociating and in desperate need of some therapy and psychiatric medication. In his apartment, we see a kill wall, and Frank is doing pull-ups until his hands bleed, and mixing his workout with narcotics and alcohol to numb the pain, both the physical pain and even more so the emotional pain. Now, when we see this shot of the whole room, you'll notice that the kill wall expands across every surface and Frank is completely surrounded by his war. This war chokes him, it suffocates him, symbolizing his mental status and how his pain and his grief haunt him all the time. So he's working out to the song Mother by Danzig. The lyrics mention finding hell with me, like Frank is in his own personal hell. Now, verse 2 also says, tell your children not to walk my way and tell your children not to hold my hand, which symbolizes the monster that Frank sees himself as. This also foreshadows the little girl seeing Frank as a hero at the end of the special. Now, Frank tears down the wall of targets because his mission is now complete, or so he thinks.
Hey, I just want to say I'm sorry for being so mean today.
Buddy, you haven't been mean today.
I'm being a real crabapple because I got to go to the vet later on.
Oh man, I get that. Going to the doctor can be really scary. I had some health issues recently when I was on vacation, and I would just doom scroll symptoms on my phone and self-diagnose instead of actually getting better by seeing a doctor. So I finally found the right doctor on Zocdoc, and they are the sponsor of this video. Zocdoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors with more than 150,000 providers across all 50 states, and it has made a huge difference in my personal health. Some of you have commented that you've noticed I've lost some weight, and I've been on a bit of a health kick, and this is all because of recommendations and prescriptions from a doctor. Zocdoc makes it easy to find the perfect doctor close to me who is in my insurance network. And on Zocdoc you can find a family doctor, a dentist, eye care, or more than 200 other specialists. And it is so easy. Check real-time availability, book instantly, and they add your appointment straight to your calendar. So stop putting off those doctor's appointments and go to Zocdoc.com/ScreenCrush to find and instantly book a top-rated doctor today. That is ZocDoc.com/ScreenCrush, Zocdoc.com/ScreenCrush. Now, back to what I was saying. Next, we see a homeless veteran, a Marine in fact, which we can tell from his hat and his shirt, as well as the song that he is whistling, which is the Marine Corps theme. From the halls of Montezuma. And here in the background, we can actually see Craig Castaldo, also known as Radio Man. He is a former homeless man who has been in over 100 movies and doing little cameos like this for different shows and films. Now, this man being a homeless vet, a Marine no less, symbolizes how veterans like Frank are used like weapons and then discarded like garbage. And next, we got one of the most fucked up scenes in all of the MCU. This is a world where literally half the universe was genocided out of existence, but what this guy just did in this special may take the cake for the single most disturbing thing in MCU history. This piece of shit takes this man's dog and throws it in front of a moving truck. This is the #1 way to make the audience be totally fine with whatever happens to this piece of shit next. Had a bit of a John Wick vibe.
You stole John Wick's car, sir, and killed his dog.
Now, back with Frank in his apartment, he is hallucinating Curtis and a few other Marines from his past. Now, Curtis, he was Frank's counselor friend and his old war buddy from the Punisher Netflix show. Curtis was always the voice of reason, so when we see him hurl insults at Frank, we know that this is really just Castle talking to himself. So this Curtis hallucination says,
"Whatever you need from me, I am right here."
And this is a nice sentiment in that Frank carries his loved ones with him, but it also means that these people haunt Frank. And what's interesting is with characters like Curtis and Karen, neither of these characters are dead. So Frank isn't just haunted by the so-called ghosts of the people that he has lost to death, but he is haunted by the very people that he simply left behind. Frank wants to stay away from these loved ones because he believes that he is cursed and that they will end up dead just like his family. So next we see Frank lock up his weapons because he believes that his war is over. Frank then stops by a cafe where we learn more about what he's been up to via this news broadcast. This reporting states that the Nuccisi crime family were one of the last crime syndicates linked to his family's death. Our own Ethan Ing, my co-writer on this episode, pointed out that this is the 3rd time that they have retconned the Castle family murders. In Daredevil Season 2, it was the Dogs of Hell, Kitchen Irish, and Mexican Cartel. Then, we learned in that same season that it was actually an FBI operation cover-up. Then, in Punisher Season 1, we learned that the attack was actually meant to kill Castle so that he couldn't blow the whistle on all of these illegal missions. And now we're adding another crime family to this web of conspiracies. Now, when Frank walks out of the cafe, he doesn't react to any of the violence around him. Eventually, the noise becomes gunfire and helicopters, which symbolize how Frank has never really stopped fighting this war. And this chaos brewing around him isn't anything new for him because that same chaos is always stirring in his mind. We see him visit his family at the cemetery where he leaves the key to his gun bag at his late wife's grave as if she is watching over the stash. It's like Frank is saying to his dead family that this violence, this vengeance, it was all in their name and now he is done, which is also why he didn't attack or save anyone earlier. It's not his problem anymore. Frank then breaks down in tears and Bernthal gives a great performance. He then considers taking his own life, which is very uncharacteristic for Frank Castle, but this also shows that he really has reached the end of his rope. But before he pulls the trigger, he begins to have visions of his family. Now here you can see a frame of his late wife Maria in her white and blue dress, and this is from Season 1, Episode 12 of The Punisher when Frank was about to die and give in so he can be with his family in the afterlife. But he said back then that it was not his time, and apparently now isn't his time either. He then has hallucinations of his daughter and says, "I'm sorry." Frank then goes back to his apartment and Ma Nuccisi confronts him outside. Now, a couple of interesting themes happen here. Nuccisi describes the deaths of her family in a way that paints her as the last surviving member of her family, so Frank basically made another him. He killed this woman's entire family, leaving her on a revenge quest similar to his own. As Ma rolls away, you can hear a remix of the Punisher theme begin to play. So, back in his apartment, Frank hallucinates Karen, and it's really telling that Karen is wearing the same skull sweatshirt as Frank's wife, Maria. In the Punisher show and in Daredevil Born Again, it has been made super clear that Frank and Karen do care for each other romantically. But Frank is scared to embrace love again because the last time he was even briefly involved with another woman after his wife, she was shot. So Karen starts by saying,
"You're not a victim, you chose it."
This is a callback to Daredevil and Punisher's first meeting in quite some time in Daredevil Born Again Season 1.
"Oh, I apologize. I didn't realize you were a victim in all this."
I ain't used that pussy ass word my entire life. You don't put it in my mouth.
Karen then says,
"You failed your family and now you're failing the city."
So this line might be the clue that Frank has abandoned Karen and Matt to do this mission instead of helping them fight the Kingpin. We know from Dario Scartapane, the Born Again showrunner, that this special is meant to explain where Frank was during Season 2 while Matt and Karen were fighting Fisk, when in reality he was filming Spider-Man Brand New Day. So Karen saying that he failed the city really is Frank saying this to himself because he feels like he should be there helping. And this is all foreshadowing his decision to put his skills to use and take on the moniker of the Punisher once more come the end of the special. Frank says,
Are you here?
and it's heartbreaking to see that all Frank really wants is companionship, but this mission will always keep him alone. So 647 arrives quickly, and it appears this way because Frank has been disassociating for hours. The attacks then begin as people begin their hunt for Frank. We see Frank run through this flaming door like he is entering hell, and then we get what this entire special was really an excuse to do, which is a giant action set piece where the Punisher goes ham. He stalks the halls like a Marine and does brutal kill after brutal kill, delivering some of the best action the MCU has ever seen. So toward the end of the fight, when encountered with the opportunity to kill the very last Nuccisi, Frank hears the screams of that little girl at the coffee shop, and he decides to be a hero instead of a Punisher. And that's showing us that while Frank will become the Punisher again, it will be a different kind of Punisher. A hero Punisher, setting up the Punisher that we will see in Spider-Man Brand New Day. Now, we've been through this storyline twice in the Punisher show already. He opened that show by quitting, but then being pulled back in by Micro, and then in Season 2, he had quit again, but then he was pulled back in by Amy and Agent Madani. So this special is showing us Frank once again trying to quit, but he just can't. Really, they needed a scene where Frank is walking past that vision of himself and the Punisher get up and he just grabs him and says,
"I wish I knew how to quit you."
Now, it wouldn't be a Punisher project without some one batch, two batch.
One batch, two batch, penny and dime.
This is the rhyme that we first heard Frank recite in Daredevil Season 2.
One batch, two batch, penny and dime.
The rhyme is from this book of his daughters that we see here in this flashback vision. And hey guys, by the way, while I have you, I do want to encourage you to check out our merch store, ScreenCrushMerch.com, where we've got lots of fun Marvel-inspired parody merch. We've got our No Fear sketch variant, Matt Murdock's A Really Good Lawyer business card, Let the Devil Out, Rabbit in a Snowstorm, the Nelson and Murdock Law and Order tee, Doug as Daredevil, and the Fisk Will Fix It t-shirt or yard sign, a necessity for any yard. Shopping our merch store is the best way to support our channel. Thank you so much for your support. So Frank decides that he is going to become the Punisher again, but like maybe for good this time, and this sets the stage for him to not only join the cast of Spider-Man Brand New Day, but it also tells us what kind of Punisher we are going to get in that film, and it will not be a softened one. We see Punisher confront the same piece of shit that stole that Marine's hat and threw his dog in front of a truck. After Punisher makes him give the Marine his hat back, the Marine tells him that the hat isn't all he took from him. Next, Frank doesn't even bother to ask who or what the guy took. He can just see in his fellow Marine's eyes that that guy took someone that he loved. Frank doesn't care if it was a person or a dog. Frank can simply see that it was a life that that Marine cared for, so the Punisher is going to make it right and kill him. And this maintaining of the Punisher as a killer is an important piece of information leading into Brand New Day, because this means that we aren't going to see a Punisher who has gone soft and is using maybe rubber bullets for the occasional fight. He's not a Punisher that has become less lethal. He is still going to view execution as the best medicine. And this is why Spider-Man in the trailer for Brand New Day doesn't want his help.
Go home!
Now, one thing I'll say that left me disappointed after watching this special was the fact that it was a special that didn't feel very special at all. This story was in desperate need of at least an additional 40 minutes to actually flesh out the Nuccisi, Frank's psyche, the current state of the city, have Frank actually have some goddamn dialogue, and make the special feel like it wasn't just a movie that only got 1/3 of the story actually filmed and like production was halted, so they just had to cut together and release what they had. That's not what happened, but it feels like that's what happened. And actually, that might kind of partially be what happened, because I've got a funny feeling that Marvel probably gave Bernthal relatively limited resources to get this little passion project made. So my hope is that this special presentation can serve as a bit of a concept to convince Marvel to do an actual Punisher Season 3, or maybe even a Punisher film. Alright, well that was our breakdown of Punisher One Last Kill. I'm actually going to have a review for the special up on my channel right now, link in the description below, feel free to go check that out. And stay tuned here on ScreenCrush for a review discussion with myself, Ryan, Ethan, and some other great guests. I also want to thank my co-writer on this episode, Ethan Ing. You are doing a great job, my friend, and Ryan and I appreciate your great work on Daredevil Born Again, as well as helping me out with The Boys. If you're new here, guys, please do feel free to subscribe, hit the bell so you get notified every time we upload a new video. For ScreenCrush, I'm Colton Ogburn.